obviously got the game coming up this weekend, but kind of seems like the big news today is a lot of folks are of course, having issues and things around the conference. And I guess just from your standpoint, I know you guys have prepared for this and prepared for things this season, but just how much of a concern is it trying to get games in, trying to get this season off the ground and rolling? Just how much is that consistently on your mind on a day-to-day basis?
It's on my mind day to day. We talk about it with our team on a daily basis about, how COVID is just out of control throughout our country, how, is at all-time highs in terms of daily people coming down with it. Hospitalizations are at an all-time high. Deaths per day are at an all-time high. So there's definitely a lot of concern. And, I'm concerned for our players and their health and safety, number one, as well as the staffs. And it's just a part of right now. And I'll be very thankful for the vaccine that I read is going to be distributed, hopefully, assuming the FDA stamps the approval sometime in mid-December. So not that far away. And boy, we sure need that to get moving in the other direction from this virus, which has just been devastating.
Go ahead and get it to Paul, and then after Paul, we'll go to Garrick. So, Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Coach, along those lines, what Joel was talking about, obviously we heard the SEC guidelines that they put forth with having 53 players, certain amount of players available at each position. Have y'all been given any guidelines like that for college basketball and how many you have to have available to play?
You know what? When we were discussing it was going to be 7 or 8 players. I don't know that I haven't heard. I'm not sure if that's been finalized, to be honest with you.
Garrick, why don't you go ahead and jump in?
Ben, knock on wood, have you guys been pretty good about not having any problems with COVID, or have you had to have stoppages throughout the couple of weeks you guys have been practicing here?
We haven't had any stoppages, and I can't really discuss specific players in COVID because of HIPAA. But we haven't had any stoppages.
Next question, we'll go ahead and go to Kyle Kouso. Kyle, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and get a question in?
Thank you. Coach Kyle Kouso with the Space Coast event in Triple Crown Sports. Looking forward to seeing you guys. For these first couple games, I'm wondering what are your kind of hot button topics, the things you're most curious to see how play out for your team in real time. One thing I look at is you guys had some turnover issues last year. Now you're minus a lot of experience. Makes me think that topic is still something that might be concerning you. But just tell me what you're most interested in seeing.
Well, the way we practiced today, you would be right. We turned it over a bunch today. So there's no question that's an issue. But we're in a rebuilding mode here. We lost our 4 leading scorers from last year's team. We're very young, very inexperienced. So it's every aspect of the game for us. It's not just one specific thing. We're trying just the very basics, starting with the defensive end of the floor and doing a good job in transition defense so we don't get killed there, and then trying to do a good job allowing our opponent only one shot per possession by blocking out and staying in front of the ball, contesting all the shots, being a good help side defense. So just the very basic fundamentals. Offensively, we're trying to push it every time we get it, and then if not, we're trying to execute our offense to get good shots. The most important thing on offense is to take good shots, have good shot selection, and take care of the basketball. And then we have a, dedicated group of guys at offensive rebound and a dedicated group of guys that are back on the shot.
Next couple, we'll go ahead and get it back to Paul and then get it back to Joel. Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Coach, you obviously added some new pieces to the front court this year. Of course, Totally was here last year, but how have those guys been rounded into form, and how do you feel about that rotation?
Well, Abdul's really done a good job for us, number one, leading that front line. He's played very good basketball, especially offensively. I mean, he's been really good and spent a lot of time being more aggressive to score and looking for his shot, number one. Tolu was here last year, but got very little practice time 5-on-5 because he wasn't eligible to play in the game, so it didn't make a lot of sense when we had other guys that were eligible that could have potentially have been thrown into the fray. But he's really had a good off season from the end of our last season to now. He's spent an incredible amount of time at his game and has really improved. So we expect that he'll have a really solid campaign for us this year. We picked up Javian Davis on a transfer from Alabama, who's from right here in Mississippi, from Canton. And he's done a really nice job. I think he's going to give us very solid minutes and is, I'm very comfortable with him, both ends of the floor. He has a lot of experience in that. He started about half of his games last year for Alabama as their starting big inside. And then Quentin Post, who did not get a lot of minutes last year, hardly any, is really improved himself. He put on 30 pounds of muscle. And so he will definitely be thrown into the fray here as well. So I feel good about those four guys and think we've got good depth. And then the fifth player would be Derek Fountain, who will give us some depth there as well.
Joel, go ahead.
I know we've talked about it a couple times, I guess, over the last month or two, but do you kind of already, in your mind, have a set starting five? Does it kind of depend on matchup? And I guess related to that, Paul talked about the front court. I'll ask about the back court. I think at one point you'd mentioned that Davion Smith might be your starting point, and then I think later on you'd said maybe Iverson. Just kind of, what's that going to be like, and just kind of what has gone into your decision making there with some of those moves?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you who's starting for the game on Wednesday night because I'm not trying to help our opponent prepare for us. So that would be number one. But that will all come out, as we get ready for the game. But once we get started and, assuming everybody's healthy, we'll have a set starting lineup. And then it's always subject to change based on productivity and, how things are going for us as a team. But ideally, you try to get to a starting lineup that you set and to a rotation that's set. So even like Tyson Carter didn't start for us last year, the last half of the season, but was probably as important as anybody on our team and was always in at the end of games. And so, you may start one team and end with another team. So it's just all based, and we're a very young team, and so we've got, a lot to evaluate moving forward.
We'll go ahead and go to Chris, CI. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned, you have a lot of turnover with this bunch. I was just curious, based off, the time you spend, getting this team ready. What you feel like will be y'all's identity this season?
Well, we're going to be pretty much trying to play how we did the last few years, which was we're trying to play inside out. We're trying to bang it at you inside, get the ball inside. We have big, strong, physical inside presence, especially in Abdul, Tolu, and JD. They're very good around the basket. And we've got to play through them, and they can pass out of the post. They're good passers. But we're also going to, look to get, DJ Stewart a lot of looks, both with the ball in his hands and coming off ball screens, as well as coming off single and double staggers. Same thing would be true for Iverson. Iverson's going to be, I think, a really good scorer for us this year.
Go ahead and get it back to Garrick. Garrick, why don't you go ahead?
Ben, it's been a long time since you last coached a game since the SEC tournament unfortunately got canceled. How therapeutic do you think it's going to be to get back out there, not only for you, but for the players itself on Wednesday?
I think it's going to be great, and I'm really excited. And, our medical people here and throughout the country are doing a great job testing, trying to help everybody stay safe, stay healthy, to recognize right away if someone does come down with COVID-19 so that we can then, keep them away from the rest of the players, the rest of the people in our family. And, it's at a high cost financially. So I feel very comfortable with everything we're doing in preparation to move forward with our season. I'm excited about playing again. I've said that before. I mean, it's thrilling after the way the season ended last year. That was so heartbreaking. And this is the first time we've really talked about the fact that we just had the draft on Wednesday and we had 2 Bulldogs go, Robert Woodard to Sacramento and Reggie Perry to Brooklyn. Really excited for those 2 young men and wish them the very best as they get ready to start their training camp here, which I think is the 1st of December.
Go ahead and go back to Kyle. Kyle, why don't you go ahead and get in with a follow-up question?
Yeah, Coach. You've been in the game a long time. I'm wondering how you sort of balance the need for patience and understanding with this young group versus expectations and what people have to rise to play ball for you. How exhausting or tricky is it for you trying to know which pedal to push?
Well, that is a great question, but we're all about rising the expectation. The next guy is up. If someone goes down, we've got to go out. And the bottom line is what I ask and demand of my players is to do your very best. Do everything you can within your best ability to be the best you can be each and every day in everything that you do, both at the basketball floor as well as in the classroom. And that's what we're teaching, preaching, and asking them to do. So as long as they're giving it everything they've got and doing everything they can do to be their best, both individually and collectively, that's all I can ask.
We'll go ahead and get it to Bob Holt, Arkansas. Bob, why don't you hop on?
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Bob.
Looking good. Look like you're one of those few people that haven't put weight on during this. I know I have. Hey, you brought up the draft. I got on a little late, so sorry if you answered this, but 14 SEC picks, or I guess 12 SEC picks, the most of any league for the first 14. Mississippi State like used to have a couple. I think 6 or 7 teams had at least one guy picked. What do you think of that for the league? Because everybody thinks about it being a football league, but obviously a lot of good basketball players too.
I think it really reflects well upon the conference and what the league has done with men's basketball here the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think there's really been a concerted effort by the conference, by the leadership of each of the respective institutions in the Southeastern Conference to emphasize and try to put more resources into being good in men's basketball. And I think you're seeing it because they've gone out and really recruited a lot of great coaches. I think the coaching staff, 1 through 14, this league is as good as anybody in the country. And I think we're really recruiting a lot of really good players in this conference. And, so it's incredible. You think about, teams with multiple players. I mean, Vanderbilt had 2, we had 2, Kentucky had 2, a number of first-round draft picks. So it's really impressive and speaks highly to the Southeastern Conference basketball.
One guy who didn't get picked was Mason Jones. He was maybe a second-round pick projection, but he signed with the Rockets. Do you? I know you've praised him after games.
Yeah, I love his game. Hey, the AP had him as the co-player of the year with Reggie last year. Mason was an incredibly difficult guy to guard. He has like a mentality of a 35-year-old NBA veteran in terms of understanding and feel for the game. And I'm sure that his agent did a good job vetting what team really wanted him to be in their program and had real plans for him. And that's a great team to be with. I mean, I love Denver. I love Mike. I think they do a great job coaching and teaching. And you see some of the guys, I mean, the Joker himself was like a late second-round pick. That's one of the best players in the NBA right now. So that's a great place for him to be. And I was a little bit surprised he wasn't drafted. What you see, though, a lot of those teams, when you get to 45 to 60, they're just stacking guys. And I think it's unfair to American players the way you can draft a foreigner and then keep them on the team and retain the rights to them for a number of years. Hopefully someday they'll be able to rectify that. I'd love them to see him draft their kid and leave him in college. Be able to take a kid at 50 and say, yeah, we have the rights to him, and why don't you stay and play in college for another year or two?
I'm sorry. Mason signed with the Rockets.
The Rockets. My bad. I thought you said Denver. Oh, no, that's a place that really needs players. So obviously he's in a good situation with all the turnover they're having. That's probably even better. In that, there's a lot of volatility going on in their roster. But bottom line is, he's a good player who will play in the NBA, I believe.
Thanks.
All right, we'll have time for a couple more. We'll go ahead and get it back to Joel Coleman. Joel, go ahead. And again, if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put it into the chat for us.
I think we're about 15 minutes in now, Ben. I don't think anybody's asked you about Clemson yet. So I guess just what's your early impressions of what you're going to see on Wednesday?
Well, I was getting pretty sick to my gut last night, Joel, watching them beat Florida State last year late in the season on a film. They beat Duke, they beat North Carolina, they beat Louisville, they beat Florida State, and all those guys are back with the exception of one guy. So they've added some really good pieces. They had a kid who was hurt that's coming back off an injury. Hunter is a really good piece. P.J. Hall, the freshman coming in, that's big. I loved when I watched him in AAU. Really skilled. He could play anywhere. So they're very, very good, really well coached, experienced, coming off a really good run to end their season, the last third of their season. So we've definitely got our hands full with Clemson, which we knew. But they're good. It's going to be an incredible challenge, especially for a number of these kids that are playing, for the first time in high major basketball.
We'll go ahead and get it back to Bob Holt. Again, any other questions? We'll wrap it up here with a couple more.
Yeah, Coach, and again, if you addressed this at the start, I apologize, but I guess Florida's, I think they're having to pause practice right now. I mean, who knows what this season's going to hold. But what are your expectations for being able to get through this season and play a lot of games and have a real season?
Well, I think with our students all going home now from campus here after today, finals, and there's a few finals tomorrow, but we're leaving town. We just tested negative for the most part here today. So I think it makes it easier to stay, COVID-free. And something we talk about every day, Bob. I talk to my team about it every single day. And it's something you have to constantly be aware of. And our guys have done a good job. And it's so prevalent everywhere now. It's everywhere. I mean, I know so many people that have had it, do have it. It's just, it's very, very difficult. And, so I'm very hopeful, though, that we'll be able to move forward and to not have to take any breaks. But it remains to be seen. We've got to, we haven't had, some teams have had. I have a friend in another conference here in high major. Every player's had it now except one in the entire program. So in some ways, you're jealous of a team like that because it's unlikely they're going to get it as the season moves forward. But in most cases, that's not the case, and you just got to do your very best and hold on so we can get a vaccine, which will really help things.
Thanks.
You bet.
Appreciate it, Bob. We'll wrap it up with Ellie French, TV. Go ahead, Ellie.
Hey, Coach. Just wondering, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for your team that you said obviously is with it being sort of a rebuilding year? What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for you guys facing this tough Clemson team?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, I think it's just going to be us, defending them and doing a good job. They're very, very good offensively. They slip a lot of screens. They've been running the same offense here, most of these kids, for multiple years. So, number one, we got to get to a good start with our defense and try to defend, our basket, and then take care of basketball and get good shots.